There is a short delay, I think, in the projection. We'll just wait for that.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Devika K. Kumar, first MA English student from Government College, Tripunithara, presenting paper on challenging the traditional masculinity, Nyan Merikuti, and the queer politics. The concept of masculinity has been a topic of interest in various fields, including sociology, psychology, and cultural studies. Traditional masculinity is often associated with traits such as strength, aggression, and dominance. However, these traits can be limiting and damaging, not only to individuals but also to the society as a whole. This paper will explore how the Malayalam movie Nyan Merikuti challenges traditional masculinity and offers a more nuanced understanding of gender. This paper will draw on the theories of gender performativity by Judith Butler and the concept of hegemonic masculinity by Ryan Connell. Butler's theory of gender performativity suggests that the gender is not an inherent trait, but rather a performance that is repeated and reinforced through social interactions. Connell's concept of hegemonic masculinity highlights the ways in which traditional masculinity is constructed and maintained through social and cultural norms. As coming to the storyline of the movie Nyan Merikuti is a Malayalam movie directed by Ranjit Shankar, released in 2018. The movie tells the story of Merikuti, a trans woman who undergoes sex reassignment surgery and navigates her new identity in a society that is often hostile and unforgiving. The movie Nyan Merikuti contains several queer elements that challenge traditional notions of masculinity. Merikuti's identity as a trans woman is a direct challenge to the traditional masculine norms that are prevalent in her community. The movie also explores themes of same-sex desire and intimacy, which are often stigmatized in traditional Indian society. Traditional masculinity is often associated with such traits, as I told, strength, aggression, and dominance. These traits are reinforced through social and cultural norms, and individuals who do not conform to these norms are often marginalized and excluded. Now let us check the character deviates from the traditional traits. Merikuti, the protagonist of the movie, deviates from traditional traits of masculinity in several ways. She expresses her emotions openly, challenging traditional masculine norms of emotional repression. She shows vulnerability and sensitivity, which is not typically associated with traditional masculinity. She demonstrates empathy and compassion towards others, which is not typically valued in traditional masculine notions. The movie Nyan Merikuti offers a newest understanding of gender and challenges traditional notions of masculinity. The character of Merikuti deviates from the traditional traits of masculinity, offering a more complex and multifaceted understanding of gender. So this paper is highlighting the importance of challenging traditional masculinity and promoting a more inclusive and nuanced understanding of gender. The movie Nyan Merikuti can be analyzed through the lens of queer theory, which challenges traditional notions of gender and sexuality. The movie portrayal of Merikuti's journey as a trans woman, challenging binary categories of male or female, highlighting the complexity and fluidity of gender. The movie subverts heteronormative expectations, portraying Merikuti's relationships and desires as valid and natural. As we are looking how the movie has the impact of the movie Nyan Merikuti has a significant impact on audience in India. The Kerala, India, sparking conversations and debates about trans rights and inclusivity. While the movie faced challenges and controversies, it proved representation and validation of the LGBTQ+ community, highlighting the importance of inclusive representation in the media. In the paper, I have compared the movies, namely Chennai 28 2nd 2017 released on 2017, and Kanchana 2011. Oh My God on 2012. The movie Nyan Merikutti provided a nuanced understanding of gender and challenges traditional notions of masculinity. The character of Merikutti deviates from the traditional traits of masculinity, offering a more complex and multifaceted understanding of gender. So this paper highlights the importance of challenging traditional masculinity and it also promoting a more inclusive, nuanced understanding of gender. Hereby I conclude. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity. Thank you so much.
We can take the questions at the end. Okay, if you have any questions for any particular speaker, you can just note your questions and we can take it towards the end. Okay. Let's move on to the next speaker. Thank you so much, Devika, for your presentation. The next speaker is Miss Anita Joseph, and she is a research scholar from the Department of English and Foreign Languages, CUSAT. Welcome, Anita.
I had a PowerPoint actually.
Yes.
Ma'am, it's okay. I can do without the PowerPoint.
Okay, no issues. I'm sorry that we were not able to.
Okay, so hello everyone. So my paper's title is From Post-Human Utopia to Transhuman Dystopia, a study of post-human prosthetics in Ken Levin's Bioshock. So my text is inevitably a postmodern text and post-millennial text at the same time, in conducive to this seminar. And here I'm basically looking at post-humanism in particular and of that transhumanism as such. Now, if we look at postmodernism and posthumanism, there are a lot of critics who say posthumanism as a child of postmodernism in general, and it can be found in the works of authors like Deleuze and Guattari's Thousand Plateaus, Haraway's A Cyborg, a Manifesto for the Cyborgs, and all those things. And postmodernism thus is seen as a prefiguring trace of posthumanism. So I'm not going into much detail because of the lack of time. So when we look at posthumanism in general, it's like basically the basic notion of transcending the limiting human capabilities. But it's more than that, because when we look at it, there are different strands of posthumanism, like popular posthumanism and critical posthumanism, and as such. So here, transhumanism basically comes under popular posthumanism, and it looks at technology as a catalyst for prosthetic enhancements. So the text that I've chosen for study is actually a digital text, a cyber drama, or in layman's terms, it's a video game actually. And it is a continuation of Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, which is a very classic work by her, and it treats Atlas Shrugged as its own text. So for those of you who have read Atlas Shrugged, we know that the author ends with the question of a possibility of what a post-human future might look like if they build a sea state free of government where laissez-faire economy survive. So this digital text actually recreates through a digital simulation to see how that economy would thrive if it was actually created. Now, we know video games in general are a particular medium which actually simulates a post-human fantasy. And in What is Posthumanism, Wolf denotes the cyborgian strand of posthumanism as transhumanism, which actually stands in direct contrast to critical posthumanism, because critical posthumanism is very all-inclusive, and with it is not speciesist. It treats everything in Haraway's word as companion species. But transhumanism doesn't look at it that way. Basically, technology is seen as the only driving force in making evolution forward for human beings. So my text, from the website itself, the game actually kind of make the players curious to come into this post-human world and see how it goes. And we know any media in general is actually granting post-human capabilities to everyone. So this work is set in 1960s, at the same time when Ayn Rand's idea of post-humanism and liberal humanism...
Anita, 1 minute. Is that your presentation?
Yes, ma'am. The second
Can you just
one.
play the... രണ്ടാമത്തെ ഒന്ന് play ചെയ്യാമോ Peter? രണ്ടാമത്തെ. Thank you. Yes, you can continue.
Okay, ma'am. I'll slide down. Okay, so on the surface level, so the story actually interpolates the player as a post-human protagonist. Now,
it actually is a commentary on how a post-human future would look like if you follow a particularly transhumanist model of post-humanism, where technology is only seen as a driver force forward. So what happens there is that, it introduces a lot of gene splicing and plasmids and biohacking using this serum called Adam and all these things. So the idea of transcending human and becoming a superhuman is taken into account. But what happens there is that till how much of gene splicing actually would be needed to become that superhuman, and how do we know this is the extent to which superhuman capability should be provided? So what happens is the idea of superhuman is basically subjective, and Ayn Rand's idea of liberal objectivism and all those things are also subjective. So for one person, cubism might be the denotation for absolute perfectionism or asymmetry, but for the other person, symmetry might be, the idea for perfection. So what happens is there are multiple scenarios in which when human element is taken to the extreme, and what happens. So it leads to continuous addiction and human modification in the way that humans are no longer there. Humans become a liminal being, a zombified being, actually straddling between life and death in that. And in one particular slide, it actually shows a dystopian effect of what posthumanism looked like. Yeah, so there in the first picture we can see it's a poster of what a posthuman perfection would ideally should be looking like. But continued gene splicing actually makes even the creator, the doctor in that video game who endorses posthumanism, to realize that even symmetry is not even continuously needed, because asymmetry becomes the ideal perfection. So here it's actually a direct commentary on what transhumanism actually looks like. So when I looked at all the discourses on Bioshock as a video game and as a digital text, everyone talks about how it's like a post-human, postmodern text. But in reality, the gap I have found is that it's actually a direct commentary on, if you're digging deeper into transhumanism in general. So my conclusion is that on a deeper level, it is a direct testament to transhumanism, and it simulates an alternative history by materializing a possible future if transhumanism endorsed by Randian libertarian objectivism is taken into account. And thus, Bioshock critiques how post-human utopia, when pursued without checks, can result in a transhumanist dystopia. Thank you.
It was very extensively worked on paper, and I'm really sorry we couldn't give you more time. And it was presented well also. Thank you so much. Okay, we are moving on to the next paper. This is by Lakshmi PV, and she's going to speak about performativity, intersectionality, intersectional performativity, and Nigerian women. Are you taking any specific work, or it's going to be a general summary?
General.
Right, okay.
Myself Lakshmi from first year MA from Swami Sastrigananda College, Puthoda. And I'm talking about performativity, intersectionality of Nigerian women. This paper attempts to make a comprehensive study of Judith Butler's theory of performativity to comprehend the performative dimensions of gender and racial bodies. As subject of the study is the identity formation of Nigerian women, the chapter also focuses on Kimberly Crenshaw's notion of intersectionality, because gender and race categories are interdependent in the lives of Nigerian women. We are raised in a society where individuals actively discipline and police their own bodies into compliance with social norms to avoid social punishments and to enjoy respectability and a privileged position. Individuals are not only involved in constituting their own identities, but also permitting the other people to define their identities in heteronormative terms. Based on Butler's findings, it can be argued that patriarchal societies refuse to comprehend gender in any other definitions other than what has been historically constituted on ontological essence, namely the compulsory and heterarchal constitutions of binary sex and binary sexualities. According to Butler, mainstream feminists fails to understand that the issues and discriminations which white women experience in contrary to the needs, interests, and experience of black women. The sexual discrimination that a middle-class white woman experiences in her white community, for instance, is different from the compound racial and sexual discrimination that a working-class black woman encounters in the same white community. These women's needs are diverse, their experience differ, and they suffer different discrimination from one another. According to Butler, in Gender Trouble, gender is neither a noun nor a being. Gender does not refer to pre-existing essential body, but is something one is coerced and expected to do through acts, gestures, and desires in order to recognized and respected in the heterosexual society. Butler's theory of performativity offers a new way of examining the formation of identities. Nevertheless, the theory has been limited to the discussion of gender and sexuality as performative, though she suggests that race, like gender and sexuality, is performative. Race proves to be performative. There are no racial identity behind the experience of race. It is performatively constituted by the very expressions they are said to be results. Black models found it difficult to find a space from themselves on magazine covers, televisions, advertisements, and billboards because they are failed to satisfy beauty standards and perceptions attributed with whiteness. Various forms of African feminists has argued that the two discourse of resistance, mainstream Western feminism has anti-racism, has ignored the aspirations, voice, and experience concerned black women. Accordingly, feminists of Africa call for the need to design a political framework that resists the masculinistic patriarchal ideologies of the black movement and racism in the feminist movement. Kimberly Crenshaw argues that the intersectional problems of black women cannot be understood overly if issues of racism and sexism are concerned independently. Since both issues constantly intersect in their lives, it is significant to consider them as whole. To the end, Crenshaw points to the intersectionality as an appropriate framework to examine the ways in which social categories like race and gender intersect to constitute the multi-dimensions of the experience of black women. Kimberly Crenshaw focuses on the discrimination of African women in workplace and the injustice they experience in anti-discriminatory law. Structural intersectionality addresses how domestic violence and rape experienced by women of color are different from the experience concerning white women. Political intersectionality demonstrates how women of color and the issues are located in the prophecy within the two dominant groups of resistance, feminism and anti-racism. While feminism fails to examine racial issues, thereby emphasizing the subordination of people of color, anti-racism ignores the gender issues, hence reproducing the subordination of women. She explains that while white women represent themselves as survivors of domestic violence, the experience of women of color are unmarginalized. Further to various barriers like nationality, women are often denied and admission in shelter homes for battered women organized feminist groups. Domestic violence of women of color has not been by the white women activists, but has also disregarded as a minority issues of the anti-racism and activists. Crenshaw concludes the article suggesting that intersectionality in an effective framework to understand how multiple categories intersect and to acknowledge and overlook the differences between groups. Nigerian women have intersectional identities. Their constituted intersectional identity is situational and arbitrary, opening to the resignation. To put it differently, the intersectional identity of a Nigerian woman is performative, and owing to the intersectional identity, they are victims of intersectional oppression and discrimination within varied power structures, not only in racist society but also in Nigeria. Thank you.
Yes, that was a very basic paper in the sense that, you know, it is more of a broad lines along Nigerian women and how feminism affects class and color. I just want to make a quick comment on that. You know, if you remember the essay that you studied for your BA English, if you remember it, we have an essay by Laura Mulvey which speaks about the spectacle being vulnerable. So, you know, when you're projected onto a stage, you're more open to attack. And similarly in Alice Walker, when we look at the black women concept, we have Whoopi Goldberg, the person who acted in the movie herself, coming from a community like that, and the entire characters in Alice Walker's novel reflects a lot of black women and their issues. If you remember the beginning of feminism, it started as a offshoot